Okay, first-hand information, second-hand information, running around bare feet like I was when I was a little kid, right? And I couldn't ever stand to be in a house. I'm sure most of you know why that is. As I've mentioned in some of the videos that I've done, I picked my parents and I've showed you how I wrote my own timeline. So that sort of means that I had an influence with my parents on where they were going to take me. Okay, in order to get the work done. And so you can see why, if I could show you a picture where I lived on 13421 Molina Drive in Tustin, California. It was a two-story house with a pool out back and all that chlorinated stuff, right? And so I naturally gravitate to be with crystals, particularly at the beach when you want to get yourself in. You know how it works, and so right around the corner, it was all concrete, right? Concrete sidewalks and asphalt. So I had to walk down 3 residential blocks or street lines, right? And then make a left and then go down that street about a half a mile and then make a right on a main drag, which is 17th Street, and go up maybe, I don't know, what, quarter of a mile maybe, and there was an on-ramp. And that on-ramp was the 17th Street on-ramp to get on the 55 freeway, which is the Newport Freeway. It'd take you roughly 20 minutes back then? Something like that. Until you got into Costa Mesa. But 12 miles as the crow flies, and now you're at the beach. Now you're with all the crystals, quartz crystal sand, right? So in the morning, that's the first place I went, barefoot, grabbing my board, right? Or my fins, because I actually prefer to body surf than I do to stand on a board. I prefer to be in the water, like dolphins, right? Like the dolphins over here that are warm water dolphins versus cold water dolphins. Now we're into hot water, cold water, cold fusion, hot fusion, all that. But the point is that I was always driven and gravitating to be with crystals, beach, sedimentary rock, right? Starts with volcanoes, right? Liquid light consciousness, magma, right? Ma GA1. And so I was always running to the beach. And because I was always walking in bare feet, it did not take long to build up what I call foot leather express, which means I had my own tread, tire tread built in on my feet. So I could walk over just about anything, including glass, sharp stones, stuff like that, right? And so I was running bare feet everywhere I could go. And but you know how it is. No, you got to wear shoes. You got to wear shoes. And that's all programming. All right. You got to follow the orders. And you got to protect your feet. Right. So sometimes it's counterintuitive. It's like, don't you think when I came out of you, Mama, that I was already given everything that I need to be able to ground myself to the planet and experience perfect balance in the center point of its sphere? So I'm getting fully informed of what's going on by being plugged into Mama's battery in living spirit with her spirit and her oversoul and my oversoul, so we can clear the codes, which are all the error codes. So you know what an error code is, right? All you got to do is go down to AutoZone whenever you have an idiot light that comes on, the engine light. Engine, the first engine of creation, which is the first informer, which is the first engine, which is the first server. I know. And so you can imagine when you're a little kid like this, you're already on fire, right? And for the reason that you are with your Macabre, right? Which is the rod, the first line of communication is what love is. That goes on forever, gifting electrons. So that's the highest server. Nothing runs faster than that. That's the first engine of creation. That's what love is. So you're always connected to the one. So I always knew I was connected to the one, which is an eternal love vibration I feel through my heart and soul that I'm sharing with everyone else. But you realize all the programs that are running in the background, I don't want to experience what their experience, and that's not what love is. Right? So when you're a polarity integrator, it means you're balancing and clearing all the distortions as you go. Now, the real kicker in this, and I shared this with Karen McDonald, right? And I know that this is because of how sensitive that I am about not ever wanting to say anything that's going to upset anybody, or I'm not trying to make you feel bad and guilty and all the rest of that. Remember, Kim Go-Goon talked about that, right? So I don't say anything. So now we're back to Patty Broussard, who said, yeah, but you're supposed to know. Yeah, but I can know if you don't know. How do I know if you don't know? Because you're not doing what you're supposed to know to do. Just as she said, right? You're supposed to know. Your soul's supposed to know. Yeah, but I'm observing folks that aren't. Do I say anything and expose the subconscious programs that are running in the background that they're held captive to? I don't want to insult their intelligence and make them feel bad, because the purest light is going to naturally expose all the crimes which are running, which are all the programs, which are video games, program apps, Star Wars video games, holding units of consciousness captive, right? And so you can see the navigating your way through a field that is distorted, and inflammation begins with information, and the information, which is inflammation, is coming through them. So in other words, we're mimicking what it is that they present to us that we're supposed to do by following the orders, which is putting shoes on, right, and staying inside of a house in front of a boob tube. So I grew up in the early 1950s, so my mother and father brought a TV set in, right? And these were vacuum tube TV sets, right? And so I told them, this thing's trying to program me. Shut it off. So I'm always outside in nature, running around, having fun, being with the trees and everything that's in nature. So that's home. So that's why I've always said this. I'm a nature boy and a nature girl joined as one, to always be in nature, which is the natural spiritual form and flow of creation, celestial mechanics, which is no errors. So there's no interruption in the signal, which means I'm not experiencing any signal interference. But I knew as a child that I was. That's why I gave a command function, the elementals. Remove everything that isn't what love is. That's clearing the server. That was the command function I gave when I was 4 years of age. Clear the server. That's the law of one. Okay? That means you know what the law is coming in. Love is the law, okay? And so this is why Kim Go-Goon does a good job of when you think of library buildings and how much you're connected to, like filling in all the spaces like a crossword puzzle. She only needs to say a few words and you ought to know the rest. You don't need a whole lot of more information for her to take the next hour and a half and 3 hours to give you all the details, which has to do with the network, like nodes in a network, to explain all the libraries that are running simultaneously in order to be able to experience all the libraries that are happening simultaneously by what everybody is experiencing simultaneously that's running to the planetary memory banks. Right? So in other words, if you're getting the speed memo, you got the memo. You know what's going on. Right? Yeah, of course. You're supposed to know. The one you know. And the one you know is what the one is, which is the first rod, first line of communication, the first server. First law of communication. Love is the law. So we know what the law is. So we are what the law is. Because we're experiencing what love is. To know what the law is because we know the one. Yeah. So how this relates to the TV sets in the 1950s, okay, that all they did, and it's really crazy because it's like you see all this already in your mirror, in your built-in looking glass. Because of how the changes took place slowly but surely over time, because it really is a matter of being able to see how they socially direct through implants and all the rest of this, what we're held captive to as a result of what they do through codes. So when you're experiencing the highest state of awareness, it means that you're actually aware, far more aware of what they're aware of, what they're doing now that's going to be experienced in the future because there is no time. So when you're always with the one is observing what they're doing to know what they're doing. So it's easily predictable because of the nature of the way that energy works, which is always breaking circuits. Which means that when you're integrated, when you're experiencing the one, there is no broken arrows, there are no broken circuits, because the spiritual form of the energy is perfect. Because it's going with the natural flow of creation energy, because you're experiencing what love is, which is the music. And that is the math, or the letters, right? And the numbers of mathematical geometrical functions of the form and flow of creation energy with your soul arc in consciousness. And so what's become clear now, particularly over the last couple of days, because things are getting cleared at a very high rate of speed right now, right? Because you understand when it comes to speed ratio harmonics, people are going to be waking up a little bit faster and faster and faster and faster, right? And that's clearing glucose, error codes, right? And I call it bugs in the system, bugs in the motherboard. And so what's happening now is that I'm experiencing the clearing. I can actually experience how fast the stuff is being cleared, because that's what happens when I come on here when I'm sharing this. Okay, the speed at which it's actually taking place. So she came out, she put a critical intel update. That's right, it is critical information, but then we're the ones who are the decider of what we believe is critical or not critical, right? Because you're the perceiver, just like I'm the perceiver of what we consider to be valuable or important. And so this is just like when I was a little kid, okay, because I know how this works within me, which is what has the greatest value. Love does, for obvious reason. That's what heals us. So that's what it began with. So when you realize what a server is, when it's clearing out all the goo codes, which run error codes, because now we're experiencing something we're not supposed to experience, because we're experiencing something that's breaking the law, which is breaking a circuit, which is breaking the speed, which is affecting what? The planetary immune system. Everybody that's plugged into a motherboard. That's why they came to throw the kitchen sink. It's not like they didn't know. Of course they knew. They knew they were in. It's called a race against time. They ran out of time. They ran out of time. That's why it's a done deal. It's like your mother or your father joined as one, decide, okay, that's enough. I'm putting my foot down. Remember that I used to grow up as a little kid. We used to have an old saying, "Mama put her foot down." Oh, Mama put her foot down. Oh man, Mama puts her foot down. That's it. You stop what you're doing, right? And that's really what it is. And so what it's like as a parent, right, being a mother and father joined as one, is it's like, and Kim even said this, it's like, go out and play, have fun, free choices, you're going to learn. And really what it is, you're on a learning journey. You're learning more about you and the relationship that we have with the rest of the cosmos, right? So the way that I know this is speed, which essentially means is how fast are we learning? So I've said this before, they want our learning to slow down, which is the immune system to slow down, right? Because they don't want us learning how our own equipment works, operates, in order for children to be free, born free. Because when children are on fire, you can't stop that engine. Once they've exercised their creative intelligence and they're experiencing what love is through their heart and their soul, bye. And that's why you can see all the waves that were coming in here with children, indigos, right? This is going to move fast. So that's why they were coming up with every tech device that they could, right? Slow everybody down, hold everybody captive, signals interference, and all the rest of this, right? Which is trying to interfere the signal of what? The one. The first signal. The first wave. First crystal spiral. So imagine how they feel knowing they've been forgiven, because you can't put that fire out. So this is why I've always sort of repeated over time. It's just a matter of surrendering to yourself. You've already been forgiven. Now you're experiencing what we are again. Right? And that's how simple it actually is. Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous laid it all out. And one of the reasons that folks have such a difficult time letting go and surrendering to themselves is what they know that they're held captive by. And it's like being whipped. Because I know I've been there. There have been times when I had thoughts that I could not overcome it, which meant that the darkness was more powerful than what I was, because I cannot lick it. It's like a monkey that is on your back. It's like little birdie in your ear. And what it really is programming. Is how deep the programming went. That distorts and mutates the DNA so bad that trying to find your way back almost becomes impossible to rebuild yourself, to remember from whence we all began. As a result of breeding experiments, forced breeding experiments, which are code experiments, which obviously means fucking with people's genetics, right? Just like the very idea that, hey, if you use this service, they put a patent on it. Patents are unlawful, whether you know that or not. They're not lawful. Because what is the message sending us? Capture of consciousness energy. That's what a patent is. They're inverted. Because, see, in their mind, which is inverted, they want to control something. So the process that they use to control something is their own rules. That's AI rules. Okay? It is the same as to say that the unit of consciousness that is represented by something that is artificial, which is not real living light that goes on forever gifting electrons. So what it's saying is that we have rules in place called the Patent Office, copyrights, and all the rest of this, saying that that unit of consciousness, that energy that is running its DNA software, okay, since it's using our system, which is not lawful to begin with, which is the entire internet, by the way, okay, so it's not a lawful communication platform. And the obvious reason is by what I've been experiencing the last couple of days. I've been sharing since I was a little kid. It's meant to capture conscious energy until it's been siphoned off. Because what it does is it breaks down the immune system of everybody that's connected to it. Okay? I mean, how many people do you see running around with laptops barefoot on the beach? Okay? Running through the forest with a laptop. Because most of the places that I've gone, particularly where I've noticed, you can't pick signals up anymore in a lot of the mountain areas, and that's not a coincidence. You can go right above Los Angeles from the San Gabriel Valley. I was up there for almost 6 weeks, something like that. And the only way that I could get a signal, if you remember, for the friends that I have that pay attention at my window with Kunjoy, she remembers I had to come down about once every 5 days just to be able to communicate with you folks. That's a good sign. Okay, so what I noticed going from, say, Southern California up to Oregon, when you start getting into the mountains, right, you could see less and less, picking up less signals, right? So you could see why they wanted everybody in the city with all the 5G and everything else, right, as kill zones. And so the internet communication platform, just like I experienced earlier today, here was a guy who went to school to get himself a doctor, knows a lot about nutrition, knows a lot about the elementals, how they work, right? And so as soon as he was beginning to talk about the importance of potassium as it relates to potassium sodium ions and the kickstart of an EKG or the magnetosphere, got cut. As soon as he started to say the word potassium, and you could already know what the rest of the words were going to say because you can already read the future of what he was going to say because you already know it. Here comes a commercial. It is not a coincidence that the gentleman's spiritual flow of energy in his communication was deliberately cut right at that word, right at that letter, fire letter, to interrupt the spiritual flow of his energy that he was communicating using the platform that he's using to communicate with us. That's called a circuit breaker. Because now what pops up? An ad, an inverter. So when you're running an inverted system, it's always going to be breaking your circuits to interrupt the spiritual flow of your own consciousness so that it's not in a state of balance between negative and positive ions. And that is particularly true when you're in a house and you're wearing shoes and you're running a laptop. Okay? So all they really did was go from boob tubes, that's what my dad used to call it, a boob tube, they were vacuum tubes, boob tubes, which is a TV screen. You already run on a TV screen, right? They want you in the house with a pair of shoes on, right? Or being locked in a house and the way the dirty electricity works, and when you understand how they wire those houses up, which is meant to drain your bowel voltage anyway, right? Which is why I was living in the trees so much of my life and barefooted being on beaches or in the forest and trying to take my shoes off as much as I possibly could to remember who I am. And this is where you get into all the programming by realizing I'm running everyone else's program, because I realize I'm experiencing all the programs that are running through the subconscious, which is really the motherboard, and then you can scale it up to the galactic and the universal level. Trying to hold everything captive, right? Because it needs the energy. And what happens is it makes it very difficult for people to experience perfect balance within their own energy field between two poles. You know, to experience the one, the first line of communication. And so today, when I was watching this little video, right, I put a text up there to let them know, hey boy, hey brother, you know what? You realize the importance of what you were saying, right? And so, you know, the more folks that are watching your program, the AI is going to look at the algorithms and go, hey, we're going to start putting more ads in there because you're becoming more popular. Which means the more popular you become by the information that you're sharing, the more circuit breakers we're going to put in there. That's why I don't have many subscribers. Because if I did, I'd start more commercials would be coming in there, and I'm going, listen, when I was a little kid with a TV set, I was cutting you out of the picture. Film edits, biofilm edits, torsion field edits. You're not supposed to be in my book, my life book. I'm the author, I'm the screen director of my own life book. You're not. So when you're wanting to put something that's inverted, which represents what you are, which is what I am not, because you're a parasite feeding on my energy, I'm not what you are, get out of here. Because the stories that I tell to my children go on forever. So if my circuit breakers are being broken all the time, then the spiritual flow of what I'm communicating to my children is going to be broken. Those are broken arrows. Those are broken gyrodomes, which are broken motherboards. So if your children are experiencing being plugged into a motherboard, you want your children to experience broken circuits communicating to them? I don't think so. So now we're back in a direct communication, right? Face to face, eyes to eyes, soul to soul, grounded to Mama Earth. The good old-fashioned way. And I remember the good old-fashioned way when I flew over on a 747 out of, what was it, Mama, Los Angeles Airport in November, somewhere around the 16th, 17th, 18th of November in 1972, and landed in La Jolla, and I thought I was on another planet. Because the colors were so intense. They were intense. Wow. This was like a lost world, like the lost civilization. Right? And that's when it came full circle. Going back to live in a treehouse. Go swimming in the ocean every day, keeping my energy up. And how that works. It's like going home. Experiencing being home, particularly on that island. So anyway, that's my 2 cents worth for the day. But so that's what I do. When I become aware of what I become aware of, I share it with all of you. What you all choose to do with it, it's not up to me. It's up to you. You do have the freedom to choose what you want to experience in the future, or if you will, what we're all held captive to. I know. That's, you know, it's just what I've always done in the past, because I've gotten rid of so much stuff that was being held in memory that I realized wasn't serving me, like my vehicles and everything else. You know, so because you realize, hey, you're running a library, you know, between past, present, and future. You know, what you want to be held captive to, what you don't want to be held captive to, what best serves us, what doesn't best serve us. And this really has everything to do with how fast we're learning to get rid of those things, you know, that don't serve us because they're feeding on our energy, right? So we end up running their programs as a result of that. Now we're running what it is rather than what we are, which isn't, because we're co-creator beings, right? Manifestors, pure energy manifestors, which means there's no interruption in the circuits. The spirits are in the form and the flow of that energy, which is the plasma waves of that consciousness, with an oversoul experiencing what we are in energy, co-creating together, right? Eternal energy spheres. That's the law of one. Experiencing love everywhere we go. That's what the law is. Because that's the law of balance, the law of spheres, which is the law in the way that the form and the function of that energy creates what we do, that we experience in our mirror, the power of the eternal spirit of fire. And that's the most powerful firewall. That's your shield. That's our shield. That protects us naturally. Love is natural protection, which is natural law, which is natural flow, because it's natural to experience being loved. It's too simple. I know. So, but you know, I cry every day because not all of us experience that, and that's why it's so painful, right? So I leave you with all my love all day long, forever and always. Have a beautiful day. This is celebrate the speed, clearing out the servers, getting rid of the goo codes, the error codes, right? That lady Sandy Glaze, when she talked about emotions, I have another word for that young lady. I call emotions an idiot light. We wouldn't be experiencing emotions if there wasn't some important value or function of what emotions mean. But I use the E and the M, right? Like M as in matter state, right? Just like part of a little rose, you know, the little curve, right? The curve instead of a point, it's like a flower, you know. Oh, that's a little softer curve, right? And then you have the softer curves like you're drawing flowers. Sometimes when I used to go freehand to draw trees, you go like this, you know, with a little tree trunk down this way, and just go, hey, that looks like a tree, because you know how it curves. Yeah. So energy in motion is emotions, right? Perpetual motion. So, you know, man, I'm feeling powerful emotion in my gut, because when I cry, remember when we used to use that word called tear jerkers? We could feel the jerk in our gut, right? Jerk. Whoa. Tear jerkers. That has an enormous impact on our emotions, right? So when I was a kid, the way I simplified this is that I'm not supposed to experience anything less than what love is. Okay, so if I'm experiencing anger, anger is called an informer. That means something's wrong. I'm not supposed to experience anger. Anger is as a way to inform me that something is not right. Because I'm not supposed to experience anger. I'm supposed to experience what love is. So why am I experiencing anger, right? So that becomes what we call a causal factor, a factor in play, an informer. We're being informed of why we're angry. Okay, so what's causing me angry? What am I doing? Right? Because I'm experiencing what I am. I'm not supposed to experience anything less than what I am. Okay, so now we got to find out what the causality is of why I'm getting an idiot light that is letting me know I'm not supposed to experience anger, because you don't want that anger to grow and grow and grow, right? Because now that lowers and lowers and lowers and lowers your energy. Okay, so if I'm experiencing anger, it's because something's wanting to feed on my energy. That's why I'm experiencing anger. Okay, so that's an idiot light. Yeah. That's another informer. Informing me of the environment that we're in. Right? Just like when I'm experiencing love, love is informing me of what we're experiencing, which is what love is. Right? So anyway, have a beautiful day. Be good to yourselves.